In 1897, a Swedish engineer and explorer, Salomon August André, was daring to attempt to reach the North Pole by balloon. The expedition aimed to be the first to achieve this feat by using a hydrogen balloon named the Örnen, or the Eagle in English. André's original team, consisting of Nils Gustav Ekholm and Nils Strindberg, prepared meticulously for the journey. The sleeping berths for the crew were fitted at the floor of the basket. Along with enough provisions to last them the estimated 30 days they would be in flight. The crew would be able to cook their meals from a modified Primus stove that could be dangled below the crew and then lit from the basket at a safe distance. On the first attempt to take off to the North Pole in 1896 was launched at the balloon's hangar at Danes Island, Svalbard. The wind was steadily coming from the north, straight at the balloon hangar. At the time, they didn't know this was a common occurrence. Without being able to travel in the direction they needed to, the crew had to give up and go home. There were several very important things that André failed to take into consideration during this first failed attempt. André relied too much on the winds blowing in the direction he wanted to go. He relied too much on drag ropes and sails on being able to fine-tune his direction. Modern balloonists reject the use of drag ropes because they can get tangled, fall off, break, and are not considered to be useful as a steering technique. He may not have been aware of the dangerous conditions of flying a balloon during the Arctic summer, such as the summer storms, fog, high humidity, and the ever-present threat of ice formation on the balloon. The most important thing André ignored was the balloon's ability to retain hydrogen. There were too many holes from the stitching along the seams that constantly leaked no matter how many times they tried to seal them. Ekholm, who was an Arctic meteorologist, warned André the balloon wouldn't stay airborne for more than 17 days with all of the leaks, and he needed to get a better sealed balloon. Until then, Ekholm refused to go on a second attempt. On the boat back from Svalbard, that was when Ekholm learned from the chief engineer of the hydrogen plant that from time to time André secretly ordered extra topping up of the hydrogen in the balloon. André's motives for such self-destructive behavior are not known, although it is suspected he might have been under a lot of pressure to produce results because of all the fundraising he had to do to be able to go on the expedition. André ended up replacing Ekholm with Knut Frenkel, a 27-year-old engineer. On the second attempt, the crew launched from the hangar at Danes Island on July 11, 1897. André dictated one last-minute telegram to King Oscar and another to the newspaper Aftonbladet, holder of press rights to the expedition, and off they went. Early in the flight, the friction had tangled up the drag ropes and the bottom of the basket was touching the water. The drag ropes twisted around so much they came free of the screw holes on their own. Witnesses also reported seeing the crew dumping bags of sand to help lighten the weight. Though they were able to clear the water, with no drag ropes, they lost over 1,000 pounds of weight. Now they were just another hydrogen balloon with no ability to steer. With all of the extra weight lost, it caused the balloon to rise higher than they wanted to. The crew rose to a height of about 2,000 feet and the balloon was quickly losing hydrogen. After 2 days, they landed on some pack ice. Being too far from their goal from the North Pole, the team attempted to go back home. The camera that was brought on board was used to document their journey as the crew faced extreme cold, storms, and the ever-shifting ice flows. The expedition was well equipped except for their clothes made of wool, and over that they wore oilskins. Not really great for Arctic weather. From the diary entries, the men complained about being cold and wet all the time. Before heading off, the crew took as many provisions as they could, leaving a lot behind. After a week of having to trek over the shifting ice and pull all of that weight, wore them down. To lighten the load each sled was carrying, they left even more provisions behind. The crew managed to kill some of the wildlife for food and had plenty of fresh drinking water from the melt ponds. Their original goal was to head towards Julian, but the wind and bad weather pushed them back. The crew resigned to camp on a large ice floe and let it take them where it would. After a month, the ice floe hit Kvitoya Island. The ice broke up right under their hut due to the stress of being pressed against the rocks. The crew moved all their supplies onto the island. André's diary entry made on October 8 read, "It feels fine to be able to sleep here on fast land as a contrast with the drifting ice out upon the ocean where we constantly heard the cracking, grinding, and din. We shall have to gather driftwood and bones of whales and will have to do some moving around when the weather permits." In 1930 was an unusually warm year where the island of Kvitoya, that is normally covered in fog and surrounded by thick ice, could be seen. A Norwegian sealing vessel was in the area, had some of its crew go to the island in search of water. That is when they came upon the skeletal remains of the Andrées expedition. It was discovered that all three men had died shortly after the last diary entry. What was pieced together is that Strindberg was attacked by a polar bear because of the way his clothes were ripped. That same bear also injured Frankel, who later died in the tent. Andrées' death is believed to be caused by morphine overdose, since he was found sitting upright against a rock with a rifle by his side, along with empty morphine bottles that were found on the site. The bodies of all three men were brought back to Stockholm, where there was a funeral procession held in their honor. It was written to be one of the most solemn and grandiose manifestations of national mourning that has ever occurred in Sweden.